Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome in to our very first founders session. My name is Steve Hayton. Super excited to have you all here. And I have the amazing Gillian here as well. Gillian, how does it feel for our first founder session?
Great. I'm excited. We love working with founders. And to provide a resource that's really helpful, at least we know firsthand how helpful it is to have a marketing expert on your side. And we hear this from a lot of founders all the time that they also need this. So I'm excited to bring this resource to everyone.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, very, very important conversation today. I'm putting a couple of links in the chat. If you are joining us live on Riverside, you'll be able to engage, say hello, jump in. And actually, if you're watching on LinkedIn, you can engage as well. Just put a comment on the LinkedIn live stream and it'll come right through to us here in the studio. Yeah, it's a studio, right? That sounds kind of cool. But a couple of links for you in the chat. So we are putting on a ton of events for founders, bringing in experts from all over the world to talk on subjects that are useful to you. So you'll see our Luma calendar in the chat. So do feel free to subscribe to that so you see all future events coming up. You're also going to see a link in the chat to our website where if you are raising, you can get yourself in front of our VC community. So feel free to follow that link as well and check that out. But with that, I think we should just get into this and bring on our amazing speaker for today. So let me bring on the incredible Pamela Wilson. Pamela, welcome in. How are you doing?
I'm doing so great, and I cannot wait to get started with this. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. I'd say, we've been working with Pamela for a while now, and there's nothing like being someone who works in marketing, meeting someone who's better at marketing to make you realize I should probably get better at marketing. So that's why Pamela's here, everyone. But Pamela, I'm going to let you kind of give us the intro, but I will hear the cool features of Riverside. Let me put your website on the screen. That might be a clickable link for some of you. If not, it's quite a simple URL, so you can copy that into your browser and check out everything that Pamela's up to. But Pamela, tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump into this.
I am actually going to switch over to my slides to show this because I mostly want people to know they're in the right place. So we are going to be talking about 5 decisions you need to make before your marketing will generate leads. And this is so important because the quality of your leads impacts everything that happens after. You want to make sure you're attracting the right people who have the right set of expectations, and everything flows well when that happens at the very beginning. So to introduce myself, actually, I'll just show this slide that will do the job pretty well. I have more than 30 years in B2B marketing. I'm a former chief marketing officer, a current fractional CMO and marketing advisor. I have deep technical fluency in AI systems, which is really important in the marketing space these days. I'm also a champion mentor for the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, their Project Healthcare program. And you can find me at PamelaWilson.com. Like Steve said, I own my name on the internet, which is a claim to fame. So I want to start by talking about what go-to-market means, because as a founder, you are hearing that go-to-market term all the time, and it's very rare that people actually define it. So I want to take just a moment to share my philosophy about go-to-market that might be a little bit different than what you've seen in the past. So go-to-market is basically a process, and that word process is really important. It is a process that turns your business strategy into positive customer outcomes. Let's talk about what that means in a granular way. First of all, there are different departments in your company that create a go-to-market gear that moves it all forward. Now, I realize that if you are in the early startup stage, you may not have departments that do these things. You may have people, or you may have one person or 2 people that do all 4 of these activities in your business. And that's totally fine. But if you can understand how this gear works, It's going to help you to bring in the right people, to have the right set of expectations for those people. So let's look at all of them. Because go-to-market has the word market in it, people think it's a marketing task. And that's why I want to talk about this. It is marketing, but it's also marketing and sales working together. And after marketing and sales have converted a customer, then it's operations for the delivery part and customer success to make sure that you retain that customer. And all four of those parts have to be present and they have to be working together. So in the very early stages, which may be where you're at right now, marketing and sales are typically most important. Why? Because you're looking for customers. So you need marketing and sales to be doing their jobs to bring in customers to your business. Operations and customer success are important, but they're probably not the primary place you're putting your focus. When you move to later stages of your business, when you do have a nice flow of customers coming in, that's when operations and customer success become very important. They become more important because you want to make sure you're delivering what you promised in a way that the customer has positive outcomes. And you also want to make sure that they stay on as customers, that you don't lose them after you've done all that hard work to acquire them. There's something else that you might want to think about as well. And the business I'm going to be talking about at the end of this session, uh, the coaching, let's say, victim I'm going to be talking to at the end of the session about his business. He has kind of what I would say is a self-serve business. And that means the customers come in, they decide they want the product, and they sign themselves up. So they don't need to have an elaborate sales conversation or to book a consult or anything like that. They find the solution, they sign themselves up. So that is sort of a self-serve customer. That kind of go-to-market plan is heavily marketing and operations. So marketing to attract the lead and then operations to deliver the solution. Sometimes you have enterprise customers, though, and the enterprise customers actually flip over to the other side of this gear, and they're focused on sales because the enterprise sales cycle is long and elaborate. So you have to have a sales team that is just working that sales cycle. And then they're really focused on customer success to make sure they retain those customers, because losing an enterprise customer can be a significant blow to a business, right? So you can see we have these four sections of this gear, but they work in different ways and in different capacities depending on either the stage the business is in or what kind of sales process you're running. The focus, just to make things really interesting, the focus can actually change quarter by quarter. So, for example, you may be running a new campaign and then marketing gets a lot of focus during that quarter. This is completely normal. So, if you're feeling like your go to market process is different every quarter, that's okay. It's a process, and processes have to adapt and change. So don't be afraid if you see that things are shifting or have different focuses, because that's completely normal. So what we're going to be talking about today is lead generation and how to make sure that the leads you get are really high quality. And those fit that topic, I would say, fits squarely in the marketing quadrant of this go-to-market gear that we're talking about. So let's get into that. And what I want to go over are 5 decisions that you need to make very carefully before your marketing is going to actually generate leads. So these are the 5 decisions in order. The first one is you have to decide on an ideal customer. And that word decide is important because sometimes people have a hard time choosing. So we'll talk about that. You've got to know your competitive advantage by heart. And that can help you to really build a lot of confidence as a founder. So we'll talk about that as well. You need to find a way to express that competitive advantage in words that will resonate with your prospects. And we'll get into that. And then you need to choose where you're going to show up to reach your prospects. So which platforms you'll use, and we'll talk about how to make those decisions. And then finally, you have to make some hard decisions about what actually makes a lead qualified. So we'll cover that too. Let's start with deciding on an ideal customer. This is a typical exercise that you go through if you're getting help as a founder. And I want to just review the things you need to be thinking about here. If you're watching this, you've probably already done this exercise, but this is a good way to check your work. So if you're thinking about your customer base with a pretty broad term like small business owners, you have not done the work to narrow your ideal customer enough. You want them to have specific descriptors that help you to identify them in the wild, right? And the more specific that description is, the easier it is to make the marketing decisions you have to make going forward. And I always tell people, you want to document this, but you kind of want to write it in pencil because, especially in the early days of your business, you'll think you're targeting a certain market, and then you may discover that a different set of people actually show up and buy and become your biggest customers and your biggest advocates. So, write it in pencil because you have to be willing to erase and write in a new answer. Make an educated guess in the very early days, and then just pay attention to who's actually showing up and converting. You need to know your competitive advantage by heart. And I chose this image because I love the idea that somebody is reading a news story in the paper about a competitor and they're just smiling because they're not worried at all. They know that the move that competitor is making is not going to impact them because they have a competitive advantage over that competitor. So, what does that look like? It looks like identifying why prospects would choose your business over the alternatives, knowing what that is. And we need to be kind of broad about the alternatives. So the alternatives could be competitive businesses that are maybe, you know, known in your field, right, in your industry, but they also may be like different ways to solve the problem that you solve. So there are some businesses like SaaS businesses where if somebody was a really sophisticated Excel guru, they could figure out how to do it on a spreadsheet, right? So they may solve the problem in a different way. You need to figure out why your business is superior to that solution. And then doing nothing is also an option for most businesses. People will simply not make a decision or they'll decide they can live with the problem a little bit longer. So, knowing how you are superior to all of those alternatives, competitors in the industry, all the way down to doing nothing is really important. And it gives you a lot of confidence as a founder. The next thing you want to do is to speak to your prospects using their own words, using customer language and not internal jargon. So let's look at what that looks like. You want to make sure that the way that you're describing your current customers' challenges and your solution uses the terminology that they use, uses the words that they use. And this, fortunately, is easier to figure out than it has ever been before because nowadays you can analyze call transcripts and you can look at your support conversations. You can take it into an AI tool and have it pull out, for example, the terminology that they're using, the phrases that they use to describe the challenge they're having and the solution they're looking for. And then you can literally turn around and use those exact phrases in your marketing copy. It's very easy. We used to have to scribble notes on paper and not anymore. We can get transcripts and take it from there. The next thing you want to do when you're making these decisions that will help you to generate high quality leads is you want to start with a single platform if you have not actually started putting your marketing out into the world. A lot of people will say, well, our competitors are, they're on LinkedIn, they are running Google ads, they have an active blog, and they've got a YouTube channel. That's great. But don't plan to compete with all of them on all of those platforms all at once. What you want to do is make a decision about where you will reach them to start. Pick one primary platform and go deep with that platform. And you want to sort of choose based on where your ideal customers are already spending time. So if you know that they're getting they're interacting, for example, with businesses like yours on Instagram, then you should probably work on an Instagram presence, right? So as part of your marketing strategy research, you want to do that intelligence where you're looking for that information, and then go deep on the platform where you know you'll find them. The other thing that you want to think about is, yes, you'll start on one platform, but from there, you're going to build momentum that will help you to branch out onto other platforms. So I just recommend starting with one, building confidence, figuring out the platform. They all behave a little bit differently. They all need different things. Once you feel like you're really doing it at a high quality level, then you branch out. The fifth and final thing is to decide what actually makes a lead qualified. And this can be tough because honestly, in the early days, oftentimes you're just happy for any lead who wants to have a conversation, right? But I want you to ask yourself 3 hard questions. First of all, are they actually a fit? Do they fit into the description of your ideal customer that you worked on in the first item that we talked about today? The other thing you want to ask is, do they have intent to buy right now? Is there some urgency around this decision? Or are they just kind of kicking the tires and gathering information, which is fine. That happens a lot in those enterprise sales, for example. But you want to know that. Do they have intent to buy right now? If so, then you need to pay more attention to them. If they're in the information gathering stage, then you deprioritize them a little bit. The other thing you want to ask about the person who's sitting across from you in one of these conversations is, do they have the capacity to actually make this happen? Do they control the budget? Do they have decision-making authority within their organization? And knowing these 3 things, the fit, the intent, and the capacity, is going to help you to make sure that the lead you're talking to is actually qualified. These are the 5 decisions. So you're deciding on an ideal customer. You're knowing your competitive advantage by heart so that it gives you confidence in what you're building. You're expressing that advantage in words that resonate with your target market. You're choosing where you'll show up to reach your prospects and going deep on one channel before you expand to others. And you're deciding what really makes a lead qualified for you. And these 5 decisions are the ones you need to make before your marketing will generate high quality leads. So we have a founder to talk to today. Steve, do we want to introduce Luke?
We do. We absolutely do. But before we do, Pamela, I love this so much. I'm so happy that you mentioned about focusing on one platform first. The amount of times that I would start to work with someone and they would say, great, I want to be on X, TikTok, everything all at once.
Yes.
My pushback is always, let's just do one well and then go from there. I've worked with a CEO or two who would then decide to go and make the account for that social platform, even though you just said it's not part of the strategy yet. So everyone, hear that loud and clear. Focus on one first. It's the right way to do it.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad. And, it can actually hurt your brand if you're on a platform, but it's just kind of a half-hearted attempt to show up on that platform. It can actually be worse than just not being there. It's better to go deep and really understand what a specific platform needs before you expand out. Gives you confidence too. If you're on Instagram and you're gathering momentum on Instagram, it gives you confidence to go take that to a different platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, right. Let's bring on our incredible founder for the day, Mr. Luke Panzer from Carbonara. Luke, welcome in. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So Pamela, I can't stop your screen share. So
I was just going to say, yeah, and I have Carbonara brought up actually, so I can show that.
Sure.
Let's see if it will. Here we are. So that everybody knows what we're talking about.
Fantastic. Well, Luke, do you want to kick us off? Just give us the intro into Carbonara. What is it you're building and why?
Sure. So we're building a guest management system for table service restaurants and bars to bring a new affordable solution to market. And we're actually building a new advertising channel for the beverage alcohol industry to support that. So at a place where you typically may discover a new beverage, it's the point of purchase and consumption. We're trying to connect that industry with the hospitality industry. It's a very, and I want to add to that, it's a very crowded space. There's a lot of software providers already in restaurants and bars. I built a former company, No Wait, that created the waitlist concept for restaurants. And so we're not trying to just build the same thing that's out there. We're trying to bring something entirely new that's low cost and has this new kind of product discovery piece to it.
Love it. Now, I don't see that product discovery piece on the website, or am I missing it?
No. It's not heavily featured on the website just yet. We're really very focused on the restaurant and bar acquisition right now. And then I would say as an early stage company, we're now trying to prove out that product discovery piece.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, you had some questions about getting better at online marketing, inbound marketing. You want to figure out how to beat competitors. And you were also talking about having two distinct customers. I'm curious to hear more about that. You sent me a really detailed ICP document, which was awesome. But I'd love to hear more about your two customer types.
Yeah. So our guest management system is if you seat people at tables in a restaurant or bar, you can use our system. So I think it's the same when you're a consumer, like you make a reservation or you maybe get in the line, but you're just going out to have a drink or you're going out to have dinner or what have you. But for the business that manages the system, they very much see it as we manage reservations or we do not manage reservations. And in our own customer base, 50% are managing reservations, 40% are non-reservation spaces, and there's only 10% that really uses both. And so it is very much two unique customer profiles and very specific features of the application that are used in those targets. And that's something that we've been aware of, but we haven't really taken into good consideration for our marketing communication. And that's why I brought it today, is to think about like, how do we sell to these two different customer types that are really, they see themselves as very different. And,
right.
At least we think in the hospitality industry, and maybe you would say of other industries, but we're selling to a buyer or to a target who kind of seems to have it all figured out and has a bit of a wall that's put up and a very, very well known for being gatekeeping and doing gatekeeping when trying to make sales. But at the same time, very skeptical of technology, very slow to adopt technology, and there's very slow change. So it's challenging to break through on the marketing front.
Of those two ideal customers, is there one that ends up being a better customer?
I could talk about this all day long.
This is a lot of it is that's the heart of things, right? So
yeah, it's one customer that uses reservations. There's far more of them, but at the same time, there's a lot of more competition in that space, and they probably have a lower. They do have a lower LTV. And for the customer that doesn't take reservations, that's using the waitlist service, there's fewer of them, but they have a higher LTV.
Is it because they churn less frequently?
They churn less frequently. They spend more, and our solution solves their problem very well, very quickly. And but they are, one of the things I noted from what you were saying earlier, Pamela, is when you're thinking about your competitive advantage and what your customers' options are, one of their options is doing nothing. And that is really, in many cases, what we're going up against for the waitlist customer. We're fighting against indifference. There are businesses that don't have a solution in place. They believe that the queue they're managing is a great sign of their business, that they're doing something wonderful because everyone's waiting in line. They think it's a great advertisement for their business. And I'm certain that 99% of the people standing in that line would rather not be standing in that line.
Oh my gosh. And they're losing customers like me who, when my husband and I see those lines, we're like, yeah, let's find someplace else. We don't need to eat there that badly.
Right.
So, yeah. So it sounds like the waitlist customers are more valuable over time, but you have fewer of them. The others convert faster. The reservation management customers convert like they get it faster.
They're more actively open to the concept. The idea of taking a reservation for dining out at a restaurant is just historically a much older concept. There's many people seeking that out. The waitlist concept, as we found in the United States, and I should clarify for the call that Carbonara service is in 34 markets now, right? So we're in many European markets, we're in South American markets, Australia, and in addition to North America. And the waitlist concept is much less known overseas. And so
so that's more of a reservations market.
Historically, but as the US was always, and my prior company, No Wait, put the waitlist concept in place in the US, and that eventually took off. And we're now trying to break into foreign markets. And for us, like, the interesting thing is, okay, while you're waiting, and this is where we do product discovery, let's show you our beer list or our wine list or drinks list, what have you. This is a great moment to do product placement. It's a great moment for the beverage alcohol industry that wants to do product sampling and actually give away something free.
Yeah.
So for the restaurant, it's wonderful because they can say, as a thank you for waiting today, we have a free sample of X. Register here to claim your sample. The beverage alcohol provider gets rich data. Kind of everybody wins in this moment.
I love that idea. So the other thing I want to make sure that everyone listening knows is something that you shared with me in the form I asked you to fill out, which is that you have a rather large competitor that's going out of business in about 4 months.
Correct. Yes. There are, I could name you 20 companies that provide reservation systems and maybe 8 that do the waitlist system. They all don't serve all the same markets. There's some overlap. But there is a very large reservation service that's shutting down at the end of September that claims 15,000 restaurants. And we're competing with 10 other companies to try to win those customers over.
Right. And how important would that be for the business if you were able to get a nice chunk of those customers?
It would be very important. It would change the business materially if we were able to win over such a substantial base of customers.
Right. Okay. So it seems to me that is definitely worth focusing on, like, simultaneously with all of these other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if managing reservations is the easiest if you could think of it as we lead with reservations, and by the way, we have these other things that add value to the system. The wait list, the product recommendations. When will the product recommendation feature be available?
It is available, and we do it on a very small scale. I think just by virtue of being an early stage company, it comes down to limited time and resources.
Right. Yes.
But it's challenging because it is one of the things that we would really like to focus on. It's a very differentiating function that we have available. It's a new revenue stream, so.
And it would be I want to make sure I'm understanding. It sounds like it would be a revenue stream for the restaurant as well. Is that right?
More so for our business.
Okay.
But it
It's more like a customer service thing in a way, right?
Yeah, and the way we've like in early stage, the way we've presented it to customers, to let's say the restaurant operator, that they've received it very well is like, for your customers who are waiting, you can activate a sampling opportunity. It gives the customers something to do while they're waiting, which is
Yes.
good because you get this hangry customers who are
Yes.
waiting, they want to eat, they're irritated. This is a universal human fact, right? When you're hungry, you just become irritated, some more than others. The second thing is it rewards the customer for waiting, right? Like I said, thank you for waiting. We'd like to offer you a free sample of this. And for the restaurant or bar, the bartenders are actually compensated when you give out free samples. Not only are the samples compensated by the beverage producer, so pick a if it's a beer maker or if it's a distiller or what have you, they pay for the free samples, but they also pay the bartender. They pay tips, right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of industry standard that they take care of the bartenders. So for the restaurant that may be offering this, saying, "Hey, we have a bar where you can not only wait, but you get a free drink," and the bartenders are happy. They may be selling more of a product because people are sampling it. They want to order more. This is very this message has been very well received so
Yeah,
far.
and that's why I thought it might be a revenue opportunity for the customer as well, right? Because if they move more product, I would say, since you're in the early days with that, it would be worthwhile to run some kind of a beta test where you're collecting data on how many of those customers, like if the average customer order goes up,
Hmm.
and also if they repeat, if they come back in the future, if there's a way to track all of that, that would be fantastic data to show. Enabling this feature allows you to have it will increase your customer order volume by X%, and customers repeat at an X% higher basis when they have received a pre-sample while waiting, right? Something
Hmm.
like that. Because it feels like such a simple, and by the way, the customers feel like they've been well served, right? They're less irritated while they're waiting, which is waiting is inevitable, right? So I think positioning it like that would be really interesting, and it would be a really great way to kind of bring that online, right? And especially if that's a differentiator between you and the rest of the market, it does seem important to get that online and available.
Can I run something else by you?
Absolutely.
So the way we're thinking about pitching this is, you know restaurants and bars are used to getting free stuff in the beverage alcohol industry because they want to sell in their products, right? And for our business, we are already very price competitive. But you couldn't. I don't think I could find a cheaper customer type. I hope no restaurant operators are listening to this call because I'm being a bit brutal, but uh, we're selling a product that's €50 a month. That might be spending €600 a year. Now there's some higher spend for some features, so maybe an average customer is spending €1,000 a year, but we're not really talking about very high numbers. But nonetheless, we could pitch this as, don't pay for your reservation or waitlist service. Let's say, Diageo or Beam Suntory or Heineken or whomever, I'm naming beverage alcohol brands. They'll pay for it. They'll like you'll get your system courtesy of them. And part of that agreement is you're doing 4 promotions a year or maybe four promotions a quarter or what have you. There's some type of advertising component built into it. It's like, here's a
Right.
way where you can get this free service that you need to operate your restaurant, and it's sponsored by this this other industry that you're used to partnering with.
Yeah, I actually love that idea. In my list of ideas that I wanted to share with you was an idea of how could this become something that you sell, that it's basically an enterprise sale, right? So you sell into a larger enterprise that stands to benefit from it in some way. And
Mhm.
then, and yes, it will be a long sales cycle and it'll be a hard slog, but if you can get into that enterprise, you'll automatically be pushed out to all of these customers. So it feels like I was thinking more along, I hadn't thought of a Diageo. I was thinking more along the lines of like a restaurant chain, like a Bonefish Grill or something like that, where it's a restaurant that could benefit from some kind of a wait list where they own, restaurants all over the country, and you sell to that enterprise and then it goes out. So I was thinking about that, but I love the idea. I mean, the beverage industry is struggling right now.
Usually,
It's
yes.
going through a tough time in general. I used to work in that industry in the marketing side of things, and it's just going through a tough time. I think, there's always a lot of change in that industry, but it's a tough time right now. So I would think that something like this that helps them to push product out to the market would be really appealing. So I love that idea. But like you said, it's hard. It's like, where do we focus our efforts, right?
Always, yeah, that's the hard thing about hard things.
Yes, exactly. So I would say there are a couple of things when I looked at the website that you could think about. One thing is, you talked about how economical it was, and somewhere buried on here, or maybe I'm not sure where I saw it, if it was in the material you sent me, but you said something about like 1 or 2 extra tables per month pays for this whole solution. And that feels like messaging that needs to be front and center on your homepage. Because this solution will help them to get those extra tables, and it will pay for itself. So it's basically a no risk offer when you put it that way. So that kind of messaging, I think, would make a big difference. Having messaging that makes it feel like there's no risk at all to trying this. I also wonder if you've considered a freemium model.
Yeah, we do have a free plan. It sounds like that messaging isn't coming through though very clearly.
Well, no, I saw you have a free plan, but well, tell me how your free plan works, because what I was thinking was something more like you get all of the features for 3 weeks or a
Mhm,
month.
mhm.
And then, unless you start paying, you can't keep using it. So there are different ways to do freemium. I'm curious how you're doing it.
Yeah, so we this is interesting to unpack. We in the past I've had a lot of success with free trials in this industry, and for Carbonara, we really try to make it an off-the-shelf purchase. So you don't have to talk to a salesperson. You don't have to have someone bothering you with calls. The application itself has a paywall built into it. So you can start using it for free. Once you hit a threshold of volume, you need to start paying. There's no contracts. Now you can subscribe for a year and get a discount, but it's meant to be a very easy turnkey purchase.
So it's set up the way I was proposing. That's great.
Yeah.
And what percentage of those people who sign up for the free account convert to paid?
About 10%.
Okay. That feels like a place to do some work.
Yeah, definitely.
Because, you know what I mean? Because, and I'm not saying that's low necessarily, but if you've already got that volume of people signing up for free accounts, it feels like a very easy place to focus your attention, where moving the needle there would make a significant difference.
Agreed. And we were looking at our funnel and thinking like, wow, we're not, I mean, we could always put more into the top of the funnel, but we don't feel like we're doing a bad job of filling the top of the funnel. It seems more like winning more of the customers coming in the door.
Yes, I think you're right about that. Yeah. And I don't, like if I was working with you, I'd be like, okay, show me what they're getting after they sign up.
Mhm.
And looking at what can we do during that onboarding process to make sure they're thrilled with the experience and to get them to convert. So what percentage stays subscribed for a full year, say? Do you know?
I think we're at about 80%.
Okay. That's a decent retention rate for a
Yeah,
software solution.
it's higher on the waitlist service. It's lower on the reservation side, but we would
Okay.
average around 20% churn on a year.
And do you have a sense of why people stop using it?
A number of reasons. It's very common that a restaurant operator will be looking for one specific feature. We don't have it, and they have 20 other companies to pick from. So they find it somewhere else. And I will note that the frustrating part about that is if we add that feature and go back to them, they're like, well, this other company
Yeah.
has 4 other
Yeah.
features that I like. So it's very hard to win them back.
Right.
They may, so from time it is an industry with churn in general, meaning like restaurants going out of business.
Yeah.
And some just have a reluctance to, well, I would say those are really the 2 biggest things.
Okay. Well, and the second one would be solved by having more of those enterprise sales where Diageo is not going to go out of business, for example, right?
Right.
So, that could be helpful to just put that as part of your mix, part of your revenue mix, because it would be more steady. I mean, when I see this, I think there are messaging issues, to be honest, that you could be telling the story in a way that's a little bit more compelling and makes it a little more obvious.
Mhm.
And that would help to convert more people to the free trial. And then again, if you work with a marketer, have them look at what happens right after someone converts to a free trial and what that communication is like and what the campaign to get them to switch to a paid version is like. Those feel like places where if you pay attention there, you'll move things along.
Makes sense.
Is that helpful?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Is there anything else you want to ask while we're face to face here?
I think that's about it for now.
Okay, good. Well, I think I've given you a lot of homework, so sorry about that. But I'm glad it was helpful.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thanks, Pamela.
Well. I do want to bring in Jillian in a minute because Jillian's husband is working on a tequila brand, and I feel like Jillian, Eric has been doing a lot of very cool things to try and get this in the hands of people. In fact, last week we were at Barbecue Fest in Memphis, and I was wearing a branded hat, walking around, ordering the bourbon as much as I could, as much as my alcohol tolerance would permit. But Jillian, tell us a little bit about that, and does this notion of the enterprise, does that resonate with you and what you know of
Yeah, I mean, my ears perked up when you mentioned that piece of it because it's interesting, right? Like it's a unique approach, and I'd be curious to learn more. For context, we have a house of spirits. It's so we're thinking of it kind of like an LVMH, right, where there's multiple different brands, and really the brand is the thing that carries it. So we are fortunate to be the fastest growing premium tequila in the market right now for North America. So, thanks, Steve, for that.
I know that tequila.
Oh, great, cool, I love that. And then we just launched a bourbon in November, and a gin as well, and that's already been on the market. But yeah, so that's just for context of kind of where I'm coming from. For me, I'm a happy supporter and an investor into the brands and the House of Spirit. So I can't say that I don't call the shots on the marketing budget by any means. Our fantastic CMO does, and he's doing a great job getting the brand out there. So it's interesting to see this. I think, from what I understand of the spirits business, it's what we say is liquid to lips. It's like, how often can you get somebody to try it, right? And usually that is handing by one-on-one, like providing an experience with somebody. But if there's a way that you can do that is, especially for on premise, for that situation where it is your restaurant or bar versus being off premise, as we call it, so like at a liquor store, it's harder to do those opportunities unless you're doing a buyout of or you're doing a tasting or something at the restaurant. So it's cool to have something like that where you can provide it. But I'm curious, like, walk me through what that's like. I guess, and do you have competition on that side of things for?
So There's two kind of clear things. Three, actually. Let's just talk about three things you can do. You can do promotional sampling where you're giving things away for free or at a discount. You can do general advertising where you're just getting impressions, and you can drive consumption. So one of the things we actually have proven out, we're working with this restaurant at the beach in Florida, and huge wait list, people waiting, and we send them a text message that says your wait time is 20 to 30 minutes. While you're waiting, have a look at our drinks list. Click this link. Open up a mobile web page where they can review the list and order, right? And if they order the drink order goes through our system back to the restaurant host tablet where they can see their wait list and the order come through, and they can put that at the bar. Now, side note, to make that work much better for the retailer, the restaurant, would be POS integration, which we don't have today. But that's really what makes it operate very smoothly. But what we were able to show is while people were waiting, if this place has a house margarita, and then they have a very top shelf margarita with Don Julio tequila, which is Diageo's brand. We were able to show that when we just promoted the high-end margarita with Don Julio tequila at the top of the menu, had a little write-up about it, nice picture, we increased sales of that 200%.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
It's, again, very early stage for us though. So that's not the kind of thing we could raise VC money on as a company because it's one restaurant and very small numbers, right? Like
they want to bigger data set probably.
And even the people at Diageo are like, that's interesting. Can you do that in 150 restaurants in the Houston area? Because we'd like to test there. Like, we're not, nearly at that scale yet, right? So that's one thing you can do. In general, whether people are waiting in line or they reserve tables, you have a digital connection to them using a system. So you can put them through the wait list and they get text messages. There's also a window where they can see their place in line. They can, we have other marketing offers in there. So that's a place where we're getting impressions and we can tell people about something that the restaurant has, right? Or if it's a reservation, again, like, hey, for your Friday night dinner, we're having a special. I'll use tequila as example in this case, right? Like we're featuring Alma de Jaguar, and we're mixing this very specific cocktail. Probably there's one that's been created for it, right? And like, this is our feature of the month. We wanted to make you aware of it. Here's a write-up about Alma de Jaguar. Here's the history of it. Here's where it's coming from. That kind of editorial content is what I think belongs in email, right? Where people who have a more sophisticated palate want to learn. It's not just like, buy this drink, it's cheap or something like that, right? It's providing more of the story and that general storytelling. And then the third thing would be promotional sampling. So this happens all day long where especially the big producers want to give away drinks. And like, the most common way to think about this is they send brand ambassadors into a bar, giving away free shots, giving away free beers, the kind of Miller Lite girls, right? And we can replace that by, again, asking people to click to receive a free drink sample, register with their name and phone number, confirm that they're 21, and then show their phone at the bar for the free sample. And
nice.
In the case of, for example, beer, that free sample doesn't have to be a whole beer. It could be a 6-ounce pour, but it's a very easy and trackable way to drive that sampling. And there's also a way to make it automated with the POS where everything is paid for by the liquor brand. So we have another partner in the market we're working with on that. And it's just, I would love to be doing that all day long. There's a lot going on here, very early stage and limited resources.
Like, I want to introduce you to our team.
For sure.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, it's a time to be innovative for sure in this space. And it makes sense if people are waiting anyways, right? That's the right time to.
We like to say, and I've heard, by the way, I love that you mentioned liquid to lips. Everyone in the industry talks about that. It's about getting taste sampling, right? We like to say that the restaurant or bar is the perfect place to do sampling, to introduce something new, because it's the point of purchase and consumption. And a further vision is you discover something new you like, right? There are 100 different services that do shipping of alcoholic beverages, whether it's liquor or wine and even beer. And so you might discover something you really like, and you could click and have that shipped to your house. And it can, for that matter, it could be there before you get home if you're really, impatient.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that is very possible. And so, right, you could go from discovery to in-store acquisition to at-home acquisition.
Nice. Yeah, I love that as we use Sip Tequila is a website that we use to ship and be able to order like that online and ship it to your home. So that's really cool. It seems to be like the data, like you can really own the data, and then from a marketing perspective, I mean, if you're able to show, most of the time that's what's so hard to track, especially in that industry. It's the data trail isn't necessarily there. So if you are able to show that, that's huge for brands out there.
Absolutely. And I'm actually familiar with Sip Tequila. I think I know some of the people. I met someone who built that. They were explaining they wanted to basically sell their own tequila online, and they just got all these people requesting to like find all these hard to find tequilas. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that there is still segments of the alcohol industry that are growing quite nicely, and luckily tequila is one of them. And certainly like craft. For us, it's all about additive free and really like high quality. So that craftsmanship.
I think and definitely for more mature consumers, like quality over anything, right? Like,
and I also wonder if it's just people are drinking less in general. So it's like if they're going to drink, they want to drink something that's a better quality.
That's how I feel about it personally. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. The other thing we're seeing from the data is that Gen Z is delayed in when they begin drinking. So it's not actually that they're drinking less as a generation. It's just that they're starting later. And then starting to see the trend of, changing a bit for them. So it's interesting. Yeah, it's a different world of that, but like the time to innovate for sure in that space. So this is exciting.
Yeah.
I love the storytelling angle here. You're talking about being on that wait list and getting some copy that gives you a bit of a background about the drink. And I'm feeling like, there could be like a little video in there where you could meet the owner, could tell you a little bit about it. How's it taste? What's it like? The aroma, all of that stuff. Obviously, Jaguar, there's money going back to saving wild jaguars, which, as a cat man, resonates with me. I'm like, wow, I could have a good time and save some kitties. Yes, absolutely. But no, we're coming up at the end of time. So thank you, Pamela, so much for being here with your insight. And Luke, I've loved hearing the story. And as you've been talking about this, I think about my own experience going to restaurants in Denver or wherever it may be. And I think maybe I'm just impatient. But when I'm in a restaurant wait list, I'm thinking, oh God, they're really busy. Is the service I'm going to experience going to be bad because they're so busy? Like, is it going to be rushed? Is it going to be really slow? Like, what is this going to be like? And I'm sitting here in this wait list, and I'm kind of like, I'm in the wait list now. Like, I can't get out of it because I've waited here so long. So I love the notion here that I can be looking at the menu.
Mm-hmm.
And a part of me was thinking, you mentioned how you could put in a drink order. A part of me is like, would I want to put in my food order as well? Like, is that who I am? It might be. It might be that I want to sit down at the table and the server comes up and says, hey, I see this is what you're interested in getting. Just let me just check with you. Yeah, great, let's go. Because now I feel like I'm speeding up my experience. I know that I'm not going to be sitting around hungry waiting, but also we're passing those tables through much quicker now, right? Because that initial order is in. We can already start working on it. I don't know. That was just kind of what was going through my mind there, but
not very European of us, though.
Yes, but when people are hangry, they will do these things, right? They'll be okay with these things. Yeah, I like that take on it.
Interesting. Well, Luke, thank you so much for being here, spending some time with us in our first session for founders. So I hope all of you watching enjoyed it. Unfortunately, we weren't live streaming to LinkedIn, so I did put out a quick post. Hopefully we grabbed some of you, but there will be a lot of content coming out on the back end of this. So with that, thank you all so much for being here. do check out our calendar. The link is in the chat. We'll see you on our next event coming up next week. So with that, thank you all so much. See you again soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pamela. Thanks, Luke.